on electrolysis and how to answer questions on electrolysis. The diagram shows an electrical cable. Which statement about the substances used is correct? The coating is plastic because it conducts electricity. Of course, plastic plastics are non-conductors of electricity, so this statement is wrong. The core is copper because it conducts electricity. Where copper is a good conductor of electricity, but we need to check out other options too. The core is copper because it is cheap and strong. Why copper is a good conductor of electricity? Copper is not cheap. It's certainly not cheap. It could be strong, admissible, but not cheap. The core is iron because it is cheap and strong. Okay, this core is not iron. The core for electrical cable is not made up of iron because iron can rust. Okay, so the two options available are aluminium and copper. Okay, but in this case, copper is a very good conductor of electricity and it's the best option for making electrical cable. So the correct answer here is B. Okay, sample question 2. When substance X is electrolyzed, the amount of gases P and Q formed is shown. Which substance is X? Concentrated sodium chloride. So we'll take them one after the other. Concentrated sodium chloride. Remember the lesson on electrolysis. Concentrated sodium chloride, we have both sodium ion, okay, hydrogen ion migrating towards the cathode because they are cation, but basically it's hydrogen that will be discharged here in preference to sodium. So hydrogen will be discharged in preference to sodium, but on the other hand, concentrated sodium chloride, you have chloride ion and hydroxide ion. Because it is concentrated, okay, the halide will be discharged. So you have both hydrogen and chlorine gas that will be produced at the electrode. Both hydrogen and chlorine gas that will be produced at the electrode. So hydrogen will produce at the negative electrode, which is the cathode. Okay, the cathode. While chloride will form chlorine at the positive electrode. But in this case, where that is possible for us to have P and Q, the amount of gases that should be produced if it was concentrated sodium chloride should be at the same level. The level shouldn't be different level. If the levels are different levels here, it's simply indicating that to produce, for example, P or Q, it takes twice as much electricity to produce Q than is required to produce P, because here this is the space that measures the volume of gas produced. So here it indicates that you have more P than Q. That means for the same quantity of electricity, you require more electricity to produce Q than to produce what P. But in this case, if you look at the discharge, okay, hydrogen is discharged there basically at the cathode, which is the gain of electron. It's going to gain 2 moles of electron to produce H2. And the same thing at the anode, chloride ion will lose 2 moles of electron to form what? To form chlorine molecule. So the quantity of electricity required, the number of electron gain or loss, it's a function of the quantity of electricity required. So they should have equal volume. Okay, for 1 mole of 1 volume of this should be equal to 1 volume of this. So this certainly can't be the answer. Okay, concentrated hydrochloric acid. The same explanation goes to concentrated hydrochloric acid. Hydrogen will be formed at P, while chlorine will be formed at what? At Q. But so the volume should be the same. But in the diagram, the volumes are different. Okay, so let's look at C. Dilute sulfuric acid. dilute sulfuric acid. So sulfuric acid will produce two ions, positive and negative ion. Positive and negative ion. While water, H2O, 2 will produce hydrogen ion and what? Hydroxide ion. So essentially we have here hydrogen, the only ion, migrating towards the negative electrode, okay, which will eventually form P. Okay, so hydrogen there, 2 of it, will definitely gain 2 moles of electron to form H2. But on this other hand, you have hydroxide ion and sulfate ion migrating towards the positive electrode. But because sulfate is higher in the negative reactivity series than hydroxide ion, so hydroxide ion will be discharged, will be given preferential discharge, preferential treatment. So it's going to discharge. So if the hydroxide ion discharges, you're going to be having OH minus. Remember the equation, 4 OH minus will lose 4 moles of electron to form 2 water molecule and 1 what? Oxygen molecule. So if you look at this now, we have 1 molecule of oxygen, 1 molecule of hydrogen versus 1 molecule of oxygen formed. If that is the case, but you see the quantity of electricity required, it requires 4 moles of electron transfer here to produce 1 mole of oxygen, but it requires 2 moles of electron to produce 1 mole of what? Of hydrogen. So that tells us that if we use equal volume of electrons, then the number of hydrogen molecules produced will be more than the number of oxygen molecule produced. So if 4 moles of electron, for example, is lost here and 4 moles of electron is gained by hydrogen, then 2 moles of hydrogen versus 1 mole of oxygen will be produced. So it is expected that the volume for P will be twice as much as the volume for what? For Q. Okay, so this is looking like the answer for molten lead bromide. Molten lead bromide, this will produce a metal lead and what? A liquid bromine liquid at room temperature. So, or at best a brown film, and that even won't fit into this particular thing we are seeing in the diagram. The question says 2 gases P and Q, and lead is not a gas. So the correct answer here is C. Okay, let's see if we can take one more question. Sample solution 3. What are the products at the electrode when dilute sulfuric acid is electrolyzed using inert electrode? Okay, we just look at that now. Okay, in the previous question, dilute sulfuric acid. Okay, at the cathode for dilute sulfuric acid, it's only hydrogen that will have there that will be discharged. So hydrogen receive 2 moles of electron to form H2. Okay, but at the anode, you're going to be having SO4 2 minus and hydroxide ion competing there, but hydroxide ion will be given preferential discharge because it's lower than SO4, and whenever hydroxide ion is discharged, remember 4 hydroxide ion will lose 4 moles of electron to produce 2 moles of water and 1 watt and 1 oxygen. So at the cathode we have hydrogen being produced, at the anode we have oxygen being produced. So B is the correct answer. Isn't it simple going through this question? You just need to calm down and do a thorough analysis of each of the question, and you arrive at a safe answer. Electrolysis is passed separate through concentrated hydrochloric acid, concentrated sodium chloride, and dilute sulfuric acid. In which rows are the electrolysis products correctly named? For concentrated hydrochloric acid, at the cathode, okay, you'll be having hydrogen, okay, and at the anode you will be having chlorine, okay. For concentrated aqueous sodium hydroxide, okay, concentrated aqueous sodium hydroxide, you have both sodium and hydrogen migrating to the cathode, but when you have these two combined together, hydrogen will always be discharged, not sodium. So this is wrong. Hydrogen will be discharged because hydrogen is lower in the series, so not sodium. Dilute sulfuric acid. Dilute sulfuric acid, because it is diluted. Okay, so for dilute sulfuric acid, at the cathode hydrogen will be discharged, and at the anode, okay, it's oxygen that will be discharged. So both 1 and 3 are correct. Okay, so the correct option here is C. Okay, so C is correct. The last question we'll consider: which role describes the electrolysis of molten potassium bromide? Potassium bromide consists of both potassium and sorry, I was writing late. Consists of potassium metal and bromide ion, potassium ion and bromide ion. So basically, this will migrate towards the negative electrode, which is the cathode. So the cathode, you have potassium. At the cathode you have potassium ion gaining electron to form potassium, while at the anode you have the bromide ion losing electron to form bromine atom. So basically, if it's bromine gas, you multiply by 2, and of course the equation can be balanced that way. So basically, at the cathode you have potassium being produced, and at the anode you have bromine being produced, because it is molten. Okay, so the correct answer here is B. So basically, all you need to do is just to record definition of keywords in electrolysis. Remember the electrolysis of molten ionic compounds. Your metals will move towards the cathode. Your non-metallic part of the ionic compound will move towards the what? Towards the anode, and they will be discharged there. The electrolysis of aqueous compound, that is where you have competition between ions, because you have two ions migrating towards each of the electrodes, and so you have to remember the condition for preferential discharge. For those who migrate to the cathode, that is the positive ions, the one that is lower in the reactivity series will be discharged, and in this case is usually hydrogen. When you have hydrogen competing with a metallic ion, the hydrogen ion will be discharged as hydrogen gas. So on the non-metallic part, if you have your halide is present, and it is present in higher concentration, of course the halide, like chloride, will be competing with hydroxide. And so if it's present, if it's concentrated halide solution, the halide will be discharged. Okay, but if it is dilute, the hydroxide will be discharged. So in electrolysis of sulfuric acid, dilute or concentrated, your OH minus will always be discharged, and when your OH minus is discharged, it produces, so remember that equation, 4 hydroxide ion will lose 4 electrons to form 2 water molecules and 1 oxygen molecule. And of course, lastly, remember the application of electrolysis for electroplating and for purification of metals and for the extraction of metal, and we'll specifically look at the extraction of aluminium. In the extraction of aluminium, remember the name of the aluminium ore, which is bauxite. Remember the formula of cryolite. Remember the function of cryolite. Remember what happens to the graphite anode at the end of the day. That is basically the story about electrolysis. It's an interesting and simple topic. Just do your review over and over.